Welcome to the Heartland Cycling Network. We have another show, another exciting show today. And just want to let you know the whole purpose of the Heartland Cycling Network is to educate and elevate cycling in the Heartland area. So today with me is Chris Ulane, who happens to be the store manager at the Trek store Midtown. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I've known Chris for a little bit longer than he's been the store manager over at Trek Store, and I know he's got some good stories about how he started over there, but I don't know, how long have you been working at the Trek Store?
Been with the Trek Store since middle of November last year, so kind of came in right at the end of the pandemic.
Okay, very good. But you've been involved in cycling quite a bit longer than that.
Yeah, sold bicycles for big box retailers, and obviously a casual recreational cyclist myself. It's my way to de-stress and stay fit, so that's always been a passion of mine away from work, and now I'm fortunate enough to merge the two together.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. That's sometimes if you've got a passion like that and you can actually be a store manager. Now, sometimes that changes a little bit, and when you have to deal with that business aspect and not, let's say, the pleasure of cycling. How does that work for you?
So far, it's been pretty good. It's tough sometimes when it's like, man, I got to go to work on Saturday when I'd really like to go do that ride.
Yeah,
but we will find time to get the riding in around that. But it is a fun way to be connected to the cycling on a lot of different levels.
Yeah. Well, I met a couple of the people that work over there. They seem to be great. I think you've got a good staff. I don't know what
got a great staff, have a ton of experience in the shop, mechanics that have been doing the wrench side of the business for upwards of 20 years. I've got sales guys that have been riding bikes and selling bikes for over 10 years. So it's really a perfect blend of some new excitement and some old experience. Can handle just about anything that gets thrown at us.
Well, that's good. That's good. I know that there's been some issues with supply, and it's not just your store, it's like everywhere. I mean, in terms of things, I mean, related to cycling, at least what I've noticed.
It's been pretty cool to see that when COVID hit, everybody was starting to lock down and looking for ways to stay active and be socially distant, and cycling fit that bill for a ton of people. And we saw folks that have never been on a bike before get into the sport. We saw people that have bikes in the garage for 20 years that are suddenly like, hey, I should get this thing out and start riding it. So it created an unprecedented boom that we have never seen in this industry before. And the big question as we went from the end of 2020 into this season was, would that continue? Would those sales drop off, or would the demand continue to be there? So the boom continues.
The boom continues.
The boom continues. It's more of a boom right now than a shortage. So it's just, there's no end in sight to the number of people that are like, hey, I'm still looking for a bike. What have you got?
Yeah. So what would happen? I mean, I know from personal experience, I've seen a lot of new people out on the trails. So when somebody comes into your store and they haven't ridden a bike since they were a kid, what do you do? What do you start doing to help them?
The first thing we do is we just really start to get to know them and what they want to get out of a ride. We really want to paint that picture so we can understand what their perfect ride is. Is it a family ride down the Keystone Trail on a Saturday afternoon with friends? Is it, I want to start training to do a triathlon because it's been a bucket list item and now I have the time and resources to do it. So the first step is just to understand really what they want to get out of their experience on the bike, and then we start matching them to the appropriate product and some of the other things that will enhance that experience.
Yeah, okay. When you start talking about the appropriate product, there's all different kinds of bikes. I mean, for the casual user, the beginner, I mean, what are you usually recommending?
It kind of depends, again, on where their comfort level is. The biggest thing we see is people that have a bike that they rode 20 years ago, and they're like, hey, this is what I have, and they think that's going to be the right bike. We start to determine that their riding style and priorities have changed. So maybe it's not a mountain bike anymore. Maybe they need a cruiser or a comfort bike, or maybe they want to do something more serious where we're getting them off of that old hybrid and into a more speed-capable road bike.
Okay.
So we've seen the spectrum of everything, and people are okay with spending some money. It's an investment. So we're seeing a lot of people jump into some of the newer technology like carbon fiber frames and electronic shifting and hydraulic disc brakes. Those features are really important to folks now, and budget seems to be less of a concern. So we've got a lot of room to really get them into the right product.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I did, now this is probably some 20 years ago, is that my kids were out of the house already. So I started riding, and I was using my oldest son's mountain bike. I think it was a Roadmaster, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of the box store bikes.
Oh, yeah.
And riding it, and I didn't know anything about bikes in that regard. What are the differences? I thought, well, they're pretty much all the same here and there. Yeah, different size tires, but the gearing's all the same. Everybody's got the same kind of things. Well, that's not always true. Plus, I think getting the right size of bike is important. So can you touch upon that a little bit?
I see that so often where people come in and they're like, man, I'm just not comfortable on the bike. My arms hurt, my shoulder hurt, my backside hurts. And we get them on a digital sizing machine that takes some measurements that helps us recommend the right frame size. And they're like, oh, I should be on a large size bike? I'm riding my kid's small size. And that's a huge part of it. Getting a bike that doesn't fit you will inherently be a less comfortable experience and will deter people from getting out and riding as much as they should. Where we have that conversation, get the right bike, look at maybe they've had some knee injuries or back problems, and really get that set up with the right style and size. We can eliminate a lot of those comfort issues.
Yeah, I think frame size is one of those very important factors that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, like I said, when I was riding my son's mountain bike, I had the seat extended way up, and over time, because I was a lot heavier than I am now, the post started bending this way, backwards, and so I ended up having to replace that. But it's like, it wasn't until I actually went into a bike store and I said, hey, I need to buy a bike. All of a sudden they started saying, well, how tall are you? Try this out, and they size something for me, and I'm going, well, I didn't realize there were different size bikes.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there about bike sizing. Some manufacturers do it by small, medium, large, extra large. A lot of manufacturers are still measuring parts of the bike, whether it's the top tube or the seat tube. It just matters to talk to somebody in the bike business so we can match your size to whatever that brand uses. Trek has gone to, on their hybrid and mountain bikes, using small, medium, large, extra large. It just seems to be a lot easier for people to be like, okay, I'm 6'3", I'm an extra large. Road cycling is still done by centimeters because it's a more precision type of a fit. But yeah, that's the biggest key to getting somebody comfortable, is making sure we match them to the right size first.
Well, you talked a little bit about carbon fiber, and there are different kinds of frame types, materials. What are they?
Absolutely. Bikes that we see made 20, 25 years ago, chromoly steel and some aluminum alloys. The bike technology has changed drastically, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, where aluminum has gotten a lot lighter and stronger, and there's different processes to shape aluminum using cold forming or hydroforming, where we can get that tube shape where we need it to be super strong, where it has to have that strength but still have a super lightweight bike. So bikes have gotten a lot stronger and a lot lighter. Carbon fiber has been a game changer. That technology's been around for 20 years, but now it's a lot easier for us to know how to lay the carbon, what type of carbon. Road carbon frames use a different layup and a different structure than a mountain bike frame because it's going to stress differently.
Okay, yeah.
But crazy light, crazy fast. First time I rode one, I thought I was going to break it in half because it felt like I was riding a plastic bike.
Oh, yeah?
It's actually used as intended. It's actually stronger and stiffer than aluminum and less likely to fail.
Oh, really?
And then
I guess that's one of the things I'm going to have to get next. Right now, I only have aluminum bikes.
Yeah, and then we're seeing a lot of bikes now where the bike I currently ride is an aluminum frame but has a carbon fiber fork. Helps, keeps the cost down a little bit, but there are some performance and advantages in weight. Carbon also does a really nice job not transmitting vibration, so it's a more comfortable ride than an old steel or aluminum bike. And even taking the existing bike and switching out to carbon fiber wheels. can enhance performance and save a ton of weight and make that bike more efficient without having to go into the deep end of the budget.
I know one of the things that you can do for your children is get them involved in cycling early, because then they'll never have any money for anything else in life afterwards. Because you end up spending money on all these different parts with bikes. I mean, a carbon set of wheels, I mean, they're not necessarily something that you find over at the Walmart. They're not cheap.
They're not cheap, and there's some pretty tight specifications. You know, definitely need to match up what type of bike you're riding to make sure that the wheel size fits, and there's hub measurements. So definitely a specialty part, but we've seen a lot of people bring life into older bikes by adding some new technology without replacing the whole thing. We've seen a lot of people like, hey, I really like this old frame. You know, it fits me great. I'm comfortable on the bike, but I'm riding 25-year-old shifting technology.
Well, and see, that's the point, you know, where you can take and upgrade an older bike that you really still like, that you fit, you know, that's comfortable to you that way, but you just want to be able to get a little bit more out of it. And I think, you know, you're talking about common upgrades with cogs and shifting and cassettes and that sort
Absolutely,
of thing.
yeah. You're upgrading from rim brakes to disc brakes, or I'm going to take those old 7-speed shifters and put on some new 9-speed upgrades that are going to be a lot more precise and give me a wider range of gears to climb those different hills and types of terrain. So there's a lot of stuff that we're seeing, whether it's new bikes or upgrades, just getting people on a bike that they're going to get up in the morning and be like, hey, I'm going to go ride today because that's what I do.
Yeah. One thing I like about the shop over at Trek Midtown is when you walk in, you've got maps on the walls, and people can use their phone and QR code and capture that. I think it's with Ride with GPS, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
But it's all different kinds of rides. I mean, the casual trail ride versus, I mean, if you wanted to get out and do some mountain biking around like at Swanson or Platte River State Park or some of these other places, gives you a lot of ideas.
There's a ton of hidden gems around Omaha and eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, depending on where you want to ride. A lot of folks just aren't aware of how extensive the trail network is in Omaha, that you can connect the Big Papio, the West Papio, the Keystone, the South O. You can literally ride all day and not touch a street just by knowing where to turn and where those routes go. Right. The dam sites and the lakes have great trails that are awesome family rides. And then, you know, a lot of people are like, well, it's Nebraska, it's flat, there's no good place to mountain bike. Those trails out here may not be long in length, but there are some very technical and advanced trails.
Yes.
Beginning and intermediate trails at Tranquility Park, right in the middle of Omaha, are very popular. Right. Platte River just opened up some new trails do there and added some length. And those are some very technical, intermediate to advanced trails. Platte River,
Lewis and Clark is another one up on the river. There's some hills there.
Yeah, so it's great that we have those maps, and it's an awesome piece of education when somebody buys a bike. They're like, hey, I'm getting into mountain biking, or hey, I've got a high school kid that's racing NICA for their first time. Where do we practice? And we can take them to those maps and show them those areas that are all within, you know, short driving distance.
Yeah. So it's not just coming into the store to find bikes. There might be some parts and upgrades that you can get, but you also offer advice. Let's say, okay, hey, if you want to take and ride, you can go here and there. And a lot of the bike shops have group rides, and you're going to be starting those up again pretty soon.
You bet. That was probably the biggest heartbreak of COVID, was that we shut down being able to be out and be social with other riders. That it just wasn't prudent to sponsor rides and lead rides, but we're getting back into that. There's some great Thursday night rides that are kind of, everybody just knows when to show up. Most shops have a dedicated ride, whether it's a Friday night beer ride or a Saturday morning family ride. A lot of female only rides out there. So we're getting back into that. Don't have anything from the Trek perspective on a regular basis yet, but we're going to continue to develop that where it fits. We're doing an event Sunday, which is kind of our first organized ride, which is a pride ride. Just, hey, bring what you got. We want everybody to know how inclusive and friendly the cycling community is, and that you don't have to go far or fast to enjoy time on a bike. Just get out there and have fun.
And you'll probably call that a no-drop ride. Okay, no drop means that you're not going to be dropped by people that are going to be zooming way out ahead of you.
Absolutely. You know, the rides that we do, we kind of partner with Edge Physical Therapy for a Tuesday night gravel ride. That is a drop ride. You know, you kind of got to know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
But we want to really showcase that riding is for everybody, and so we will make sure that those rides we have support. You know, make sure we have somebody riding at the back of the pack to make sure we don't leave anybody behind, or if somebody does have an issue of any type on the trail, we've got support for them. I don't think anything would be more frustrating than to be like, hey, I got this great group ride and then I got left on my own when I needed help. That's kind of deters people from getting out and enjoying the sport.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that I've been doing is I've been going out on some of the other shop rides and just seeing what's out there, and some of it's a little bit more challenging for a person of my age, but it's still nice to get out and get out with some younger folk, and for me anyhow, and actually maybe push myself to a little bit harder than what I would on a normal basis. So I kind of like that.
Group rides are great for that. I find that I will stretch myself farther if I'm riding with somebody or with a group. That okay, you know, maybe if I need to push a little harder to maintain a little faster pace. So it's definitely a good way to enhance your skills, to meet people with common interests, and get a little bit more out of that ride, depending on what your goals are. So group rides are great, and the nice thing is the variety of shops and events and businesses that do rides. There's a ride out there for everybody. If you want to go low and slow at short distance and just get out and enjoy a day, great. If you want to ride to a destination to be social, great. If you want to push hard and really see what your physical and mental capabilities are, there's rides for that too. So it's awesome to see that variety available in Omaha.
Yeah, I know there are several bicycle clubs, the Omaha Peddlers, the Bellevue Bicycle Club, Thor is another one. Those are, you might say, I call them official clubs in the sense that you really need to be a member, a paying member, which helps them. The dues are really cheap to join these kind of clubs, and they offer rides as well. So that's always important. But there are a lot of other groups and people that just do gravel rides, for example, or that are just mountain bikers, or that they do the road stuff. So
there are a lot of organizations that don't necessarily do organized rides or membership types of things, but that sponsor events. Harvest Racing, which is a team that we help support. They've got some pretty fast rides that you can be part of, but they organize events like the Los Hills Enduro, which is a very challenging gravel race for folks that want to try a timed event and see what a competitive event is. And there's groups like Wear Yellow Nebraska that are doing some amazing things for fundraising for the cycling community, and having big events that draw tens of thousands of people.
Michael Merritt will be on our show soon, so I've got him lined up.
So it's great that this year we're going to be able to start participating in a lot of those events. We've seen families put on events. There was a really successful event last week on the Wabash Trace called Bike with Mike, which was put on by the Kudelek family, who lost a son who had some mental health struggles with COVID, and to honor him and raise funds for local charities that support that. They got the word out. We partnered with them and helped, did some social media. They ended up having 400 riders and raised almost $200,000 in their first year. So they were expecting maybe 100 riders. So it was really cool to see the community get up and support that. And I think people are just really clamoring to get back on a bike and get back to the social aspect of being on a bike.
I think that's so true. Just one, getting outside, but then, I mean, I ride solo a lot, but then I do enjoy getting out with groups just to, sometimes I just learn about different things because I see somebody else on a different kind of bike and I can ask them some questions. I mean, that's one of the things about the group rides and the clubs is that you can learn from these people and they're willing to share.
And that's the coolest thing about being in an organized club like the Omaha Peddlers or the Bellevue Bike Club is you're going to meet so many people with so many different experiences in riding. You'll be like, oh, I didn't, tell me about how you have your bike set up, or hey, I haven't seen tires like that before. How do you like them? It's great to be able to gain knowledge and share knowledge especially with folks that are a little bit newer to the sport that can be a little bit intimidated by somebody pulling up on who's ridden for 30 years, that has this big fancy bike, and you're like, you know what, it's still got two wheels and you have to pedal it. Let me tell you how I got here.
Yeah, and that's the thing, how they got there. I mean, I had somebody I know that showed up on a group ride with the Bellevue Bike Club last year, and it's like, okay, he had taken the bike out of the garage, he hadn't ridden it in 15, 20 years or whatever, and we got it cleaned up, and he was riding with us, and it was probably one of those big old mountain type bikes, and we're doing trail rides, but then he started asking some questions of one of the guys, and I remember him saying specifically, he says, we all started where you're from, where you're at right now. It's not that we got here right away. It's over time that we learned how to take and figure out what is going to work better for us for different things. And one of the common terms within the biking, cycling community is N+1.
Oh, yes.
So N stands for the number of bikes you have. The +1 is the bike you want to get. So,
and we get that question in the shop too. It's like, well, how many bikes do I need? And we tell them that same thing. It's really a matter of personal preference. I currently own one bike, and I can do a lot of different things with it. I know most of the folks that are like, hey, I got a mountain bike for when I go off-road. I have a gravel bike for that. I have my race bike when I want to train, and I have my hybrid when I want to ride with the family. There's no right answer to that. It's what fits your style. And that's where, talking to somebody in a bike shop, if you're just getting into it or you're looking to change to a different bike, what's the best fit for all of the different riding? And sometimes the answer is like, there's not a bike that's going to do everything you need to. We have folks that are like, hey, I like to do trail riding on the Keystone with my family, but I also want to go to Jewel and do some mountain biking with my teenager. Those might be mutually exclusive, or you really need to look at two different bikes to get the best out of that. And that's just being honest with people.
I started out with a Comfort Hybrid, which was a big, heavy bike. You're sitting upright. And then I wanted to go in the winter, so then I bought a mountain bike because I thought the knobby tires would actually work better, and they did. But then there are times when I couldn't go out, and I saw these people on fat tire bikes riding.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going, well, maybe I got to get one of those. So I ended up getting a fat tire bike. So I have 4 bikes right now. So I do have a fitness hybrid, and I don't ride that as much, but I have that on the indoor trainer once in a while. The fat tire bike for going out in the winter, I have a gravel bike and a road bike. Now the gravel bike and the road bike are pretty much the same geometry. It's just the size of the tires and the gearing that's different on those. And just recently, I put on a 28 millimeter wide tire on the gravel bike, which is a road tire. And the reason being is I'm going to be taking a trip, and I'm going to be doing a road ride with basically it's a community event from a community I used to live in that I want to go do. And it's all pavement, it's all roads. So I wanted to take only one bike, but then I want to take and do a rail trail, which I need a little wider tire. So I've got another wheel set. So I got 2 wheel sets for this gravel bike. I can swap it out. So it's like, okay, one bike can do 2 things.
We give that advice to people a lot of times, especially right now where certain models of bikes are a little farther out. We have people that are like, hey, I've got a road bike, but I really like to ride the Wabash Trace, but I'm not comfortable on that limestone with the sticks and all the debris on my skinny little tires. It's like, great, what bike do you have? We can take some measurements. That bike will accommodate a wider tire. And a lot of times you can go to a different tire without having to change tubes or rims. Or in your case, it's a lot sometimes faster and less expensive to just get wheels that are super easy to swap out, and then that bike becomes a Swiss Army knife. You can do a lot of different things with it depending on what that day calls for.
Because the other week I rode on the Wabash and I had my 38 millimeter wide tires on that. And it was just easy, and it's nice and smooth, but I noticed the difference when I had the road bike tires on, because the bike was, let's say, more reactive. I felt more of the bumps. It was just amazing. I guess I've never experienced that before. So
tire pressure has a lot to do with that, and we see a lot of folks just out on the trail. I see it every time I ride. People that are, it's like put a little bit of air in your tires, or if you're used to riding pavement and you're gonna ride that hard packed dirt, let a little pressure out. It'll make that ride so much more comfortable and make the bike handle the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's always good to go into a local bike shop to take and ask them questions, because they're willing to help you. Overall, ultimately, they do want to sell you something, but quite frankly, I think they're more interested in trying to help you understand what your needs are and make sure that you enjoy getting out and riding your bike. So what question did I not ask you today that I should have?
You covered a lot of it.
About e-bikes, I think.
The e-bikes, that is, the e-bike is a game changer. And if you are hesitant to get into cycling because you're like, I don't know if I can keep up, or my body just isn't built for cycling, but I really want to try it, or my friends will leave me in the dust because I can't do the hills, check out an e-bike. They will change your life. It's riding a bike, but you've got a little bit of help, or a lot of help, depending on just at the push of a button. While you're pedaling, it's going to help you out. You have to put in some effort for those, but it's a great equalizer to get people onto a bike, and I'm a big fan.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris, for coming today.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that, and hope to see you guys next show on the Heartland Cycling Network.